I don't know this for sure, but I think if we took a poll, Nebraska fans would generally not be real comfortable, real pleased with the quarterback play. Maybe I'm going out on a limb there for 2022. All right. Welcome in the Voice of College Football, our Huskers live show that we present each and every Tuesday. We know Matt Rule does not sit still, and he's out there getting players, both on the high school level and on the collegiate level. We will get to that. But the number one story is, of course, a new quarterbacks coach. We got Justin Adams on the line, of course. Hope you're checking out Justin's work here at the Voice of College Football GBR, Cheesy Corn Sports, and we'll talk about a lot of other ventures Justin has underway across YouTube and, of course, posting videos here at the Voice of College Football. Justin, how's it going tonight?
It's going. Little bit of news to drive us through this Tuesday. So, and it's a quarterback coach, which has been the biggest question mark in the last few weeks. So,
yeah, and obviously I had tongue firmly planted in cheek as we opened the show, talking about better quarterback play needed, because it was basically a train wreck. It was just completely unacceptable, just nothing close to what it needed to be. It really forced Matt Rule and the offensive coordinator from North Carolina. I can't think of his name.
You talking about Marcus Satterfield?
Yes, Marcus Satterfield.
Yeah.
The Marcus Satterfield offensive coordinator from Pitt.
Yep.
I'm getting all mixed up, but anyway,
you're talking
Pitt,
college football all day. It happens.
Yes, and just hamstrung them from that standpoint. I know that they wanted to be a power running team, but I think they had to take that to an extreme because of just the lack of reliance that they could put on these quarterbacks, starting with Jeff Sims, of course. But now we got Glenn Thomas with a wealth of NFL experience, like 20 years in the league.
Yep. Yeah, he's and one of the main things that I see, it's a knee-jerk reaction when you see a name, right? That's, Dana Holgorsen, right? We know of his successes in college football because, he's a bigger name. When you go and you get high on a guy like Dana Holgorsen, it's one of those things where as soon as a guy with a lesser name or a lesser name to us comes in, because of the schools that he's coached at, are a little bit smaller schools and stuff like that. The biggest one probably being ASU. So it's one of those things where it's not the excitement that you wanted, from that big name of Holgorsen, but it's another guy. Glenn Thomas, another guy with connections to Rule, and Holgorsen. The biggest issue that I saw with Holgorsen was he's very much a type A personality. So is Matt Rule. And the biggest thing that this staff does well and that they're all committed to and they work hard at is recruiting. This staff is always on the road recruiting. Dana Holgorsen does not like recruiting. So that was never, I feel like, going to be a good fit. They had a conversation, but it was just up to how that conversation went. And, I was leaning a little bit, maybe yes, just because, Holgorsen's success, but, Matt Rule just didn't maybe feel good about that conversation. But, Glenn Thomas, he was the Falcons QB coach back in 2012. Like, if you go through his resume, it speaks for itself. The Steelers this year, he was an offense. He wasn't even the QB coach. I believe he was like an offensive, in some kind of offensive role, offensive analyst of some kind or something like that. But he wasn't actually the QB coach. But looking at his success in college, it's similar to Rule where, you look at Rule's NFL success and, he may not necessarily have had the NFL success, but the college success speaks for itself. And that's all we should really be concerned about, even though in the NFL, Glenn Thomas did have success. So, as the Falcons QB coach in 2012 to 2014, that was when Matt Ryan was the coach there, helped develop Matt Ryan. 2 of his 3 Pro Bowls came while he was there. He only had 3 in his career. His number one year in completion percentage in 2014. And then, he was just let go when Dan Quinn took over. What's up, John? I appreciate you stopping in here. And then, moving over from there, he went to Temple, was hired on by Matt Rule. And that was kind of the first time that he actually worked with Rule. And even there, like, you know, and I'm very partial to a quarterback that he had there at Temple, PJ Walker, because I'm a Houston Roughnecks fan. I'm from Houston. So that 2020 team, PJ Walker, we were 7-0. COVID shut the season down. I firmly believe we were going to win that championship, and Houston got robbed of a football championship, but I digress. His quarterback there was PJ Walker. And as we know, PJ Walker started in the NFL this last season, the season before, you know, the last few years after he was pulled to the NFL from the XFL. And he was the one that kind of developed PJ Walker his last 2 years there. 2015 to 2016 were the 2 years. QB coach in 2015, coordinator 2016. And that was the only 2 times, those 2 seasons, coincidentally, the only times that Temple has been ranked since 1949. Back-to-back 10-win seasons, first time ever. Back-to-back bowl games, first time ever. 2016 AAC title. You know, and that's at a school like that, of Temple of all schools, you know, he took over a team that in 2014 was 100th out of 128 in scoring. You know, move on to 2015. He went from 100th out of 128 to 61st out of 128 points per game. And then 61st to 42nd in his second year, 2016. And so, you know, again, just the development of PJ Walker just goes to show that he can develop quarterbacks, because he was a quarterback coach for 1 year and kind of a QB coach, offensive coordinator hybrid, you know, that next season. And then, of course, went over to Baylor. You know, we know the successes. It's long talked about the successes he had at Baylor, but, you know, the specifics of it simply are kind of understated because, you know, for his work there, because, you know, he was the co-OC and QB coach his entire time there. And in 2017, you know, 404 yards per game. They were 98th out of 130 in scoring. Okay. 2018, they went from 98th to 63rd out of 130. 2019, they went from 63rd to 27th. And then, and during that time frame, you know, their quarterback was Charlie Brewer. You know, and his best TD to interception ratio was 2019, 21 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, and 69 TDs in his 3 seasons there. But, you know, semifinalist for the Davey O'Brien in 2019. You know, and you look at the other thing that I wanted to look at was just, you know, how do these guys do after, or how do these teams do after? You know, Charlie Brewer, for instance, whenever he left in 2019, Charlie Brewer regressed in completion percentage and had a 14 touchdown to 8 interception ratio, which was significant decline from the 21-7 ratio before. So that's another thing to look at too, is like, what did these teams look at before, and then kind of what did some of these guys look like after, for the guys that he wasn't there for the entirety of their career? Do you have any questions so far? And just
no, it just makes total sense. I do that many times in looking at coordinators, because it's often difficult to get a gauge on their success, because it could be a program where just is consistently strong in that area, or good or not good.
Yeah.
But to get a consistent pattern of, okay, well, this guy's been at 4 stops, and at every stop, there's been a significant improvement when he jumped on board. And then when he left, they regressed again. And that's been a repeated pattern. So I've just gone through the same process that you went through with him a number of times, because I find that interesting.
Yeah. And another big thing that, you know, in looking through his career that I saw is it wasn't just quarterbacks. You know, he's shown to be able to develop other positions and, you know, turn other positions into, you know, a strength for a team that necessarily hasn't been. At UNLV, Charles Williams set the program rushing record there under when he was the OC, because he was UNLV's OC from 2020 to 21. And that Charles Williams was the first UNLV back to win, you know, the All-League honor more than once. And he had 2 Mountain West Freshman of the Year quarterbacks in Kyle Williams and Cameron Freed the 2 years he was there. So, you know, and then going over to ASU, same thing. You know, we're talking about a QB coach, but, you know, as an OC, he really helped develop run games at 2 of the programs he was at, UNLV and ASU, because ASU as an OC and QB coach, you know, Xavier Valladay, 10th best rushing in school history, 1,100, almost 1,200 yards, 16 touchdowns, which was the fourth most in school history. And then Trent Bourget, ASU all-time completion percent leader at 71.4. So, like, it's not just QBs. You know, he's shown the ability to develop more than just that. And I believe, to his credit, he has more sustained success than Holgerson. And you know, also he's kind of one of those guys that he's just flown on the radar as a really, really good coach. And for Matt Rule to be able to go and get him from Pittsburgh, where he's an offensive assistant, and bring him back to the college level to be a QB coach, you know, that's a testament to the relationship that he builds with them. But it's just the trust that, you know, Matt Rule has for these guys and players that he works with. And it's even more so a reason why when we see some of these big names of guys, you know, maybe coming on the staff and something like that, maybe that's a reason to kind of just pause, because we've seen the trend of the type of guy he brings on. And the biggest thing is just Matt Rule so far has made a lot of good decisions and a few bad ones, very, very few bad ones. You know, at this point, I think we're at the point where we can just kind of trust his judgment, because he's the one who's worked hands-on with these guys, and he's not going to bring in a guy that he doesn't think will give immediate success. And, you know, one of the biggest things is just the NFL connection from a lot of these coaches, because that's something that a lot of players pay attention to when they're committing to a school. You know, they like the guys that can set them up for success in the NFL.
Yeah, really good stuff there, and trying to improve on that quarterback position. And as you've mentioned, Glenn Thomas shows the ability to do that, but also impact the other positions, and really the improvement of the entire offensive unit.
Yep.
Uh,
And that gives Satterfield just you know, Satterfield again had to stretch from OC tight end coach, you know, to OC tight end coach, quarterback coach. And, you know, he was, you know, very maligned for the offensive struggles this year. And he was very much the target for the offensive struggles this year. And a lot of people wanted to just point to, you know, his time with oh my God, Spencer Rattler, and the offense he had there. But, you know, the thing about it with Nebraska is, you know, I'll get to it in a little bit with Raiola talking about, you know, what he saw in this team. And he referenced 2023 as a positive sign, you know, when you looked at the tape, and you know, he's watching the offensive side of the ball. He's talking with Marcus Satterfield and stuff like that. And if he's buying into Marcus Satterfield and what he's doing there, then when he's in that stretch role, you know, then that's a very positive sign going forward. And in this case, now Satterfield can just strictly focus on, you know, his offensive game plan. We got a stacked tight end room, you know, Fedoni, Carter Nelson coming in. So, you know, he can just focus solely on that aspect, game plan, and get us ready for, you know, for each week. And you know, now he can do it with a much better QB room, albeit inexperienced, but, you know, and just with all the hits he took last season, was just, you know, the way he was able to just kind of manage, you know, he, for all intents and purposes, our worst QB room we've had in a long time. And, you know, it was still an improvement over the last 7 seasons. So I think he's get a fair shake. Josh Martin, though, who was coaching the tight ends, moves back to analyst role.
So now, Justin, I guess the question is whether Glenn Thomas has a play in his playbook, not that he's going to be the offensive coordinator, but a throw for Dylan Raiola, maybe a 9 route for 73 yards.
Yeah. No, that was a crazy throw. For those that didn't get to see it, do you mind if I pull it up here?
Sure, go to it.
I'll try to keep the volume off, because I think there was an OS word moment in there, and I don't want to get us demonetized. So let me pull it up here. So I don't know if you can hear that, but hopefully not, but I'm going to pull it up here. Could you hear that?
No, could not.
Okay, perfect. We won't get demonetized. All right, so this was the Polynesian Bowl this weekend, and it was just the competition to see who can throw the furthest. And this was a 73-yard throw right here.
Oh, he jumped past the line, though.
The audio's on now.
They didn't fully say the word. They should. Shh. So Yeah, so and he had to redo it a second time and got 70 yards because he crossed the line. But and another throw here from him, it's kind of like you look at you kind of look at the mechanics of him, and you kind of see, like, for instance, on that 73-yard throw, the way he loads and explodes through his hips, the way he opens his hips and explodes through the throw, he's able to make some of these passes just look effortless. And at a kid his age, just even simple throws like this, but they just look, it's little things, it's little touch and stuff like that where, you see in these little clips just the potential that he has. And under the tutelage of Jeff Christensen, like, the sky's the limit with him. We've seen what Jeff Christensen's done with Mahomes, et cetera. So yeah, and just throwing that deep at his age is just absolutely absurd. That was really fun to see.
Yeah, that is cool stuff. And Tom Brady made a comment, I think it was years ago, but I just saw the short online the other day. But if somebody can really air it out like that, that's not really football related. That's not game related necessarily, but it shows you what the arm talent is for other throws too, because Brady made the comment something like he was asked, and this was a non-football interview. This was like a 60 minutes interview where somebody's a reporter, a news person, asking things that they think are more football related and saying, how far can you throw a football?
Yep.
That's a thing for Tom Brady, but it's obviously not.
Yeah.
His calling card. Well, he said, well, if I can get into it, if I can really take a step, put my whole body into it, I can throw the ball 70 yards.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, that's not really practical. That doesn't really matter. He said, I'm looking to throw the ball 50 yards max during a game, usually.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of why I was like just kind of looking at the mechanics of even that throw. And Matt Rule, I think one of the reasons, of course, that his arm strength is shown in film too. But Matt Rule wanted a guy that could just chuck the ball and put some velocity behind it, because he mentioned that when Memorial Stadiums, the winds get whipping around in Memorial Stadium and stuff like that, he needs a guy that can push the ball in those moments. And a guy with his arm, we saw Jamarcus Russell throw the ball like 70 yards from his knees or something like that, but wouldn't watch film, and it didn't matter. He wasn't a good, hardworking quarterback. But so we've seen instances where these guys can throw cannons, but we've also seen instances where, like Tua, for instance, I feel like his arm strength significantly hurts him. So it's a good thing in a way, but also the film is just the more important aspect of it. But I think it's just impressive at his age to be able to throw that far. But yeah, just the effortlessness of it, and the way he explodes and drives through his hips. And watching a few of Christensen's videos, like, he's very much, everything is just lower body. It's hips, a lot of opening up the hips, a lot of hip stretches, hip flexor movements and stuff like that. So that's why I was kind of looking at seeing that type of stuff. So he's already getting really good development, and then just having a second angle with Glenn Thomas coming in there, and Marcus Satterfield already being there. I think these guys are set up for success. And in his interview, Raiola stated that, Satterfield and was one of the reasons that he was, wanting to come here. And I would imagine by the Polynesian Bowl, he had to have known, the Glenn Thomas news was, at least on the way, or at least it was in the works. And so, yeah, they were very much in the know about it. And Raiola clearly, he's bought into the staff. He's bought into this team. He doubled down on it this weekend. So I just think everybody should give them an opportunity, and let's see what he can do with Raiola.
Now, Chippa Purdy isn't necessarily going to know, in making this move to San Jose State, who his next coach is going to be, because his coach is off to Arizona to replace Jed Fish. And of course, the dominoes are falling this time of year. Nick Saban retires. Kalen DeBoer goes from Washington to Alabama. Jed Fish from Arizona to Washington. And now Brent Brennan, the San Jose State coach, goes to Arizona. So San Jose State looking for a coach, but not necessarily a quarterback, with Chippa Purdy moving on to San Jose State. So we wish him well, and hopefully he can continue his football career there. And you would think he would be the odds-on favorite to be the starter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Chubba again. I believe he was very underrated here. You know, he's a 4-star prospect. He's a dual threat guy, but he's fairly polished for the lack of experience he's had, and he just needs the reps. And I think San Jose State would be a great place for him to go, because it's the competition there isn't crazy. He's probably going to be getting the nod for the starting role, and I just think his upside's crazy. So I think he has an opportunity to go play there and maybe move, transfer to a bigger program after. So he was awesome with his time here. He didn't fold when times got tough. Even when other people brought in to start over him, he didn't transfer out. So I just think at this point, when we bring in a couple true freshmen, 4-star, 5-star, and he's had the injury history and stuff, it was time to move on. But I think he's going to be very good there, and probably move on in a year to a better school.
Now, more importantly to the folks watching about who Nebraska is bringing in next, there was an offer made to 2025 quarterback Matt Vollers. And if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Vollers, Matt Vollers, 9th-rated quarterback in the country, according to 247 Sports. He's out of Pennsylvania as the 3rd-rated prospect in the state, top 150 overall.
Yep. Yeah, he's it's another one of those things where they're trying to be very proactive at this quarterback position to get a jump on it early. I think lesson learned there. But yeah, he's I haven't had a chance to look at the tape yet, but it's probably indicative of, it was right around the time Glenn Thomas got hired, that offer went out. So I would imagine there's going to be some kind of connection built between Glenn Thomas and him. They're probably starting to kind of get that, built up for the future. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes across in the coming days. But yeah, 4-star rated quarterback, just already, class of 2025, and to be already a 4-star, that's just, it's only going to probably go up as he gets visibility in camps and, more time on the field and stuff like that. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out. And, Glenn Thomas being at Pittsburgh has ties in Pennsylvania. So we'll see how it goes, but exciting. And, it's just, if we can get this trend rolling of kind of landing these quarterbacks early on and just kind of building those classes, that way it's not a desperation crunch last second like it was this previous year. I think they're learning their lesson a little bit there. So
Matt Zoller's 2023 season that just concluded there at Springford High School in Pennsylvania, 37 touchdowns, 2 picks, 63% completion percentage, 243 yards per game, threw for almost 3,000 on the season. So 37-2 TD to pick ratio, that works. 23-3 TD to pick ratio last year, 61% completion percentage. And then it looks like, I'm sure, as a top 10 quarterback in the nation, this was the case as a freshman, probably did not start at the beginning of the season, but just wowed everyone. And by some point in the season became the starter, threw 7 touchdowns and 3 picks in his first season there. So he's a plus 63% completion percentage. And again, what pops out is 37-2 in TDs to picks, ran for 420 yards and 7 touchdowns. So he had a total of 44 total TDs last year.
Yeah, it's another one of those instances where, they want a dual threat, a guy who can run, not necessarily a dual threat, but a guy who can run. But, you mentioned the completion percentages, and coming into this offseason, one of the biggest focuses, and they specified a number when bringing on Jeff Sims, their goal, and he was at about 54% at Georgia Tech, but they wanted to get him to 65% this previous year. And we know that didn't go over too well. So, you see the completion percentage of these guys is that they're starting to kind of focus on. And it's around that 65%, even these high school guys, but it's still around that range. So again, I think another lesson learned there that it's just best to target these guys that they're kind of are already what they're looking for and not too far away from it to where they can, get behind their development too terribly much and have to focus on one specific guy too terribly much to turn his entire thing around. I think one of the biggest things that Satterfield, as the QB coach had to undertake last year is not only, moving to a stretch role as a QB coach, but, we brought on a quarterback that was supposed to have a specific quarterback coach. Then the goal was set to get him to a 65% completion percentage. Okay, then that doesn't happen. Jake Peets, was supposed to come over last year, fell through at the last second. Then Marcus Satterfield has to step over into that role. And then all of a sudden he's thrust with his first year as an OC at a school, getting to know the offense, getting to know the players and coaching the players on offense. But also he has to try to bring this guy, Jeff Sims, from a 55% completion percentage up to 65% and teach him how to, basically pass the ball and mechanics to pass the ball. And it was too steep of a hill to climb. And I think that's why we see the pivot on what type of players they're targeting and stuff like that. And, it's a good sign that, even in, we look at Raiola's Polynesian Bowl interview, and one of the biggest things he mentioned was last year, he said, don't look at the record. If you look at the record, yes, you're going to see, 5 wins. It's not going to look pretty, but what he said was, look at the film. He watched the tape of what this team was. And then he said, after the season, before the season, he didn't know what Nebraska football would be. And then after the season, he used 2023 as a reason of optimism. And then said after that season, he just kind of quote unquote felt a tug pulling him to Nebraska. And, again, mentioned how tight knit the coaches were. Again, another reason why the Holgorsen thing may have not went, over well, because the connection that these coaches have, a lot of players specifically mention it. It's not just that Matt Rule trusts these other guys. It's that the players see these connections. And it was one of the first things he mentioned when asking him what brought him over. And he said, Raiola, who's been at, visit the top of the top programs, said that's very rare, at all the schools he's visited and been to. He said that's extremely rare to find a coaching staff that is as tight knit as this one is. And, and that's, he mentioned the progress he's made in 1 year and the NFL experience. So all of those things are going into, this season that we didn't have last year in the off season when trying to get, a quarterback, a top level quarterback. And that's part of the reason why I don't think we're going to run into a situation like Sims again, just because now that they have that momentum, they can start pointing to these things and players can start seeing the film and seeing the progress and finally get, these coaches are in there settled in and doing their things. They can start getting in there and seeing some of the stuff that sold Raiola and it's going to start selling some of these other quarterbacks too.
Soon as you mentioned the 5-win season, we tried to not mention that as much as possible.
Yeah,
but the 5-7, it reminded me that in addition to, of course, the top 25 that actually makes sense that we produce every week, we just released our 1 through 133 rankings this morning for 2023. So I'm going to let you simmer on this a little, everyone, because I want you to go over and check out the live streams. We did a live stream on that, but leave your comment in the chat. Guess where I ranked Nebraska between 1 and 133 for 2023. This is not a projection for 24. This is based on 5 and 7 and their schedule and everything else involved. So just leave a number there in the chat where you think I ranked Nebraska.
Do I get a guess? Because I'm only like 15 minutes into it.
Oh, you're checking it out? Okay.
Oh yeah. I started watching it earlier. It was like a couple hours, so I just I'm gonna watch it in patches, but I'm really, really curious. One of the biggest things. So I'm gonna guess 53.
Okay.
That's my guess.
And keep in mind the way I rank is not a ranking based on how good I think they are. That is strictly a resume ranking.
Yeah.
So
mm,
anyway,
still
we will let folks comment in the chat.
I feel like that's the implication that it's much lower. So I'll
No,
let's go with
just commenting.
Let's go with
No,
80.
you're down for 53.
Oh man,
You're at 53.
I hope it's 53 then. I really
so
hope.
Everybody leave their guess on my ranking for Nebraska. 5 and 7.
44, Cole 48, Mr. H 44, Jim Allen 73. Yep, keep them coming.
40, there's a 44 in there.
There's a 44 and a 48, so I'm not the only one swinging.
44 is a little high. Okay, that's the high watermark. 44 and 73 is the low. Okay.
Yeah, and 53 is wrong, but kind of.
I didn't say it was wrong.
I'm not. I feel like the implication is wrong, and you're not letting me change it. So, but yeah, it's I'm excited to check that one out for sure.
More good news this week, folks. And think about this. At this point last year, there was an all freshman Big Ten linebacker, Ernest Hausman, saying, see ya, and going to Michigan. But this time around, there's a quality linebacker coming in from Syracuse who racked up 53 tackles this past year, Justin.
Yeah, and Stephon Thompson, Syracuse kid, had ties over there with our DC, so with Tony White. So and very, very successful. Started day one as a true freshman. He's the first true freshman to start day one since Deshaun Davis in 2011. 10 starts. He had 35 tackles, 7.5 TFLs in 2020, or 36 tackles, 7.5 TFLs, 3 sacks, and a forced fumble. So in his true freshman year, in his debut, he actually had a career high 7 tackles. So many games beyond that, he's had 6 tackles and tied the 7, but that was his best mark to date. Single game TFL record, was 4 against Louisville. So that was a single game TFL record for Syracuse. So 4 in his true freshman year, tied for the 3rd most by an ACC player in a single game since 2020 or in 2020. So, even as a true freshman, just came out the gate swinging, and then was also a freshman in 2021 because of the COVID year. And as you can see there, he took a significant improvement, 79 tackles, which was 2nd on the team, 6 sacks, 8 TFLs, 2 forced fumbles. The person he was behind in tackles is Michael Jones, who was 1st team All ACC in 2021. He was called the QB of that defense that year, and he was a finalist for the Butkus Award. So it's a guy that's, it's okay to come 2nd place to that. That just shows the caliber he was. And then 2022 redshirted because he got a season-ending injury. And last year was his redshirt sophomore year. He appeared in every game with 1 start at linebacker, 52 tackles, 4 TFLs, 1.5 sacks, and a forced fumble. So even off of the injury, came out as a redshirt sophomore and, was very, very key in that defense. And it just goes to show that, with what Rule and them are trying to do right now with this transfer portal cycle, as a lot of these guys, we didn't have room. We're still over on scholarships, still need to navigate some stuff, over by about 10 on scholarships. And that left this staff with one thing, and they had to just go after guys who they feel are going to immediately be able to make an impact. And he's another one. 169 career tackles, 10.5 sacks, 20 TFLs, 4 forced fumbles. Sorry, I had a seizure there for a second. 4 forced fumbles, which is the 20th in the history of Syracuse. So, very, very decorated there, and just a name that I don't think a lot of people will know just based on the fact that he was at Syracuse, but, awesome career. And again, has ties to the staff, another player that the staff trusts. And, Tony White must have really liked him there, must have really liked his character and as a person. So, it's even more of a reason to be excited about him.
I enjoyed that LFG, every time he jumps into a show, he hits the like button, lets everyone know which number like he is. This is just his thing.
Yep.
And I appreciate that because it's a very subtle way of saying, I hit the like button, you hit the like button.
Yep. Like I said, I say this in the beginning of my videos sometimes, but the thing is, we don't necessarily like to ask for likes, but YouTube doesn't like us if we don't. Like, otherwise they don't really help us out very much. So, It is greatly appreciated by everybody for sure.
Absolutely.
And we have some rankings coming in here. Never mind me with 1, his prediction. Mike with 39, Ted Hilker with 35. So we are swinging big here.
Swinging big, yes.
GC yours 23.
23.
I don't know if he's saying he's 23 years old or his guess is 23.
Maybe it's his birthday or something.
I don't think that was a right. Right.
Letting us know 23 likes.
Oh, gotcha. Appreciate that. Yeah, Drizzle Stick. What's up, Drizzle Stick? He's in my post games a lot. Yeah, just a little bit more on this transfer portal cycle, just because I'm excited about this transfer class that we have coming in. While it's not going to be a lot on the rankings, just because it's a smaller transfer portal class, but I think the improvements that this team's going to make year over year are just going to be tremendous, because this team is probably got some of the best transfer talent as far as just bang for your buck and just quality over quantity that we've had in some time. And we've had a lot of good transfers come in here. A lot of the transfer that we've had over the last 4 or 5 seasons have contributed in big ways. So it's just a lot to be excited about, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Getting rid of all those weapons, and then having those weapons and being able to put on a showcase for this offense is going to be key next year in this new Big Ten, especially so these like the 2025, 2026 quarterbacks can see kind of what we're putting out there, and not necessarily have to rely on the film and the connections like Raiola, so we can pull some of these guys from these other areas.
Yeah, subscribe here at the Voice of College Football. The way you do that, or the reason you do that, is you're pretty much locked in that we're going to be here every Tuesday at 6 Central. So that's fine. But Justin or myself may jump on from time to time, as Justin did a few weeks ago when there was breaking news. And so you don't want to miss that opportunity. So if you subscribe, hit that bell for the notifications to know when we go live. Also, as you see down on the bottom on the ticker, if you own a business or you're in connection with a business that could benefit from what we offer here at the Voice of College Football, GBR, then certainly you can partner with us and we can help deliver your product, your brand, whatever you've got going to new audiences, and probably in different ways that you're not necessarily considering, not just on this show, but throughout the entire channel and social media platforms as well that extend beyond that. So please hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail if you have any questions or thoughts in that area.
Yeah, GC yours here with said, is it too early to say Nebraska will have 10 wins next year with Raiola as a starter? That's Tom Brady arm strength. He's only 18 years old. I like that. All right. I get it. No, looking at the schedule next year, I was curious everybody's win-loss prediction now that the class is kind of settled in next year, because again, the schedule, in the very beginning is front loaded, and this is going to be an opportunity for this team to get a lot of momentum going. And him saying, will Nebraska have 10 wins next year? Mark, do you think that's preposterous to make that statement? Or do you think
this leads me into one of my favorite stats? This leads me into one of my favorite stats, and maybe it's one of my favorites because I concocted it. So I'd say about 5-6 years ago, it dawned on me in going through all the preseason publications, Street and Smith's, Athlon's, all of those, that they seem to be extremely conservative. It wasn't like they were jumping out and really jumping on any particular team to break through. It was always Alabama's number 1, Ohio State's number 2, Georgia's number 3, and and then if I started looking at their conference predictions and noticing that they were pretty much predicting everyone to pretty much hit the same record that they had last year, maybe off by 1, or if there was a situation like Colorado and Dion last year, well, that they're not going to win one game, that there was an expected jump there. And was outside of those kind of situations, just expecting things to stay status quo. So I started to chart the differences that college football teams make from season to season. So I would take the Power 5 every year and I would say, okay, it's 2019. We just finished the season. How many teams had what I consider to be a dramatic increase or decrease in wins from the previous season? And I determined, now this is just my own milestone or demarcation, line of demarcation, but I considered 3 wins to be a significant increase or decrease. You're 6-6 one year, you jump to 9-3, you're going to be in the top 15 in the country. That's a significant improvement. Or if you're 6-6, you drop to 3-9, you go from a bowl team to a pretty bad football team.
Yep.
So I just figured, okay, 3 wins is at least 3 wins, either improvement or decline. And I've been tracking this for about 5 or 6 years. So I'm going to ask you, this is our second question of the night, everyone. Everybody listen up, because sometimes people don't listen to what I'm asking. There are 69 Power 5 teams. If you take all the conferences plus Notre Dame, how many of those teams, those 69 teams between 2022 and 2023, do you think either increased at least 3 wins or declined by 3 wins? For example, to give you an example, Northwestern, and we're just talking regular season record, so we can keep everyone with 12 games. Northwestern 1-11, 7-5. Obviously, they fit that category.
Yep.
Great improvement, 6 wins. So they're one of the teams in the Power 5 out of 69 that either increased or decreased by at least 3. So from 22 to 23, how many do you think had that much of a dramatic movement?
Okay. The fact that you're asking this question, I'm assuming it's low. I'm going to go with 3.
Okay.
Am I too low?
We're going to let the chat simmer on that before I give the answer. I want to see some responses here.
All right. 33. We got one for 33.
Okay.
And I'm going to bounce a question off of you. All right, 35. After this, I'll bounce a question off you, a counter question when I get this stat. So 33, 35, 3. Ted agrees. 8. All right, so we're getting a wide variety here. But I just feel like the implication of the way you're asking is that it's much lower, because you got way too excited about that.
That's a dramatic change.
Yeah, 3 wins is big. 3 wins is big. A big 28-5. Appreciate you watching from the Philippines.
Yeah.
All right.
RS. Okay. You guys ready for the number? Any other guesses? How many teams in the Power 5 out of 69 had an improvement or a decline of at least 3 wins?
It's going to be like 1.
1? I just gave you 1.
All right, 2. No, all right, I got 3. I'm sticking with 3.
25.
All right, dang, I was way too low.
25 teams. So I'm giving Nebraska fans a lot of hope that this happens a lot more than people think. Every time I ask that question, you know what the response usually is? 8, 5, 7.
Yeah.
No, it's 25 this year. It's 29 last year.
All right. So okay. I feel like I was over analyzing the way you asked the question. Now my thing here is, okay, so with that being said, it's a 5 win increase, right?
Yeah.
So
3.
No, I'm saying to get to 10 wins.
Oh, okay.
To get to 10 wins, right?
Yeah. But
yeah, so that one's a little bit more of a stretch. So you would say that one is kind of preposterous, right?
Yeah, that probably happens. The difference between 3 and 5 in a 12-game season is a ton.
My question is, though, okay, I'm just, as a Nebraska fan, I have to throw this out there, okay? There's this stat, and I believe I've referenced it on the show before, where they compile every single team's plays, and they just put them in a random order. The plays and the success of the plays, turnovers, fumbles, penalties, everything.
Who does this?
Randomize the order. I have to remember, I think it was College Football Data. They do it each and every year in Nebraska. So they have the unluckiest team rankings, right? And for like 3 of the last 5 seasons, Nebraska has been number 1. It might be 4 of the last 6 or something. Last year, the adjusted win total for Nebraska, they were number 1, was 3. From 5 to 8 was, so the expected win rate was 8 wins. The actual win rate was 5 wins. And what that meant is basically that essentially what we know, Nebraska messes up in the most important situations, but the overall success of the team, had them not, they happen in a different order or something like that, would have been 8. Now, with that criteria, does that change your mind at all? Or do you think that's just me grasping at straws?
No, I think that's a valid statistic.
I would say so too, just because we've called this team like, the best 3-win team of all time before. And
that team was too.
Yes.
Like 3-win teams were not playing within 1 score of Ohio State.
Yeah, exactly.
And Michigan
and
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Like that Ohio State team was an 11-1 team. Michigan was whatever they were that year, 11-1, and Oklahoma was, I'm trying to remember what season that was. That's been a while. Was that 21?
Which one? The one that
the one that went 3-9 and seemed to lose to everyone by 1 score.
21.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the easy comparison there for me is just to look at a team like Ohio State in particular, because that was the first year Michigan broke out and was really good.
I'm going to double check that.
Ohio State's just steamrolling 3-9 teams. They're winning those games by 40 points.
Yes.
But they struggled with Nebraska. And again, It was a good game.
Yes.
Again, same thing, Michigan, same thing, Oklahoma. That Oklahoma team was 10-2. Michigan was 11-1.
Yep. Yeah, that was 2021.
Yeah.
And the strength of schedule that year, was I mean, looking at it, in this breakdown, it was our hardest strength of schedule since 2017. And then before that, the last time we had a strength of schedule that hard was, you have to go all the way back to then. Dang, I don't even see one that hard, like the 90s, to get a strength of schedule that was 6.6. So even in that season, to your point, it was a tough strength of schedule, because without that team might, have a completely different outcome, but probably not because of the way they lost. But and it's just one of those things where it's like, it's crazy to think back, because, as brutal as that season was, if that turns out a little differently, Frost might still be the coach here. But it's really interesting to see how that's still carried over, and just to see like when that trend is going to break, going forward. So next year's schedule is a little bit, better, I would say, than this year's. It's just a little tougher on the back end, but I don't know. I think 10 wins is very much is a ceiling for sure. I would say probably, reasonable expectations, 8-win range, 9-win range, just because the quarterback situation, we got a 5-star and a 4-star, but there's not a lot of depth there. I saw somebody ask about Harburg. I think it was John Diadamo asked about Harburg earlier. Speaking of Big Ten show, John Diadamo, the Ocho, y'all, when is that, Mark?
So the deal is that this Friday night we're launching a kind of new edition of the Big Ten Live Show, courtesy myself, hosting Friday night at 7:00 Eastern Time. The Ocho, with John hosting, is Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time.
Monday at 8. Got it. Yep. Go check that out. Very, very good show. Mark and him have been doing it, but little different style, so a little bit to like on both of them. So so it's just it's going to be, we have 2 true freshman quarterback and then Heinrich Harburg. So, John asked earlier about what is Harburg's role going to be. I think right now he has to be a quarterback, just because we only got 3 on the roster. And so it's he has no choice. But the thing is, the problem with that is if one thing goes awry, or, we've seen how many quarterbacks can get banged up and how many people can get banged up, especially in Big Ten play. then that changes things dramatically. So I think we do have to take the inexperience and the lack of depth in the QB room into account. So I think it's fair to say, yeah, I think it's fair to say, 8 wins is reasonable. Look at that front load. Like, I'm going to be at that Colorado game too. UTEP win, Colorado win. Let's be honest. Northern Iowa win. Illinois, sorry, Sonny. That's a big win. Purdue win. Rutgers win. We won all those easy.
Okay. They could be 6-0.
Yeah, it could be. All right.
I would not be surprised at all. But
some of those games will be tough. Yeah. Rutgers will be tough.
If they don't clean up their ball security,
yeah,
they'll be 4-2.
Well, there's no more Jeff Sims. So let's say let's say they go 5-1. All right.
Okay.
Let's be conservative. 4-2.
Okay. Very conservative. 4-2.
Yep.
And I could see them losing to anybody except for games 1 and 3. Okay.
And
4-2.
We ain't losing to Colorado.
And then after a bye week, they go to Indiana. Got to win that game.
Yep. And then Ohio State, Mark, we can go ahead and count that was a dub for Nebraska.
Of course.
No, I'm just playing.
Yeah, no doubt.
That one. Okay. We're going to assume that's a loss. Okay. UCLA, UCLA's nothing crazy next year.
No, they're not great.
And we got them at home.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can rightfully count that as a W. Let me know if I'm being a little too biased here.
I think you're fine.
All right. 6 wins. And then USC, right in the Coliseum. They won't have any fans there because they usually don't.
I don't know about that.
All right.
But
well, if they have a down season, they won't be there. I'd say that they know no Caleb Williams, but they do have a lot of talent on that team. And yeah, they do have a good quarterback coming in. So I'll say it's a loss. I'll take that one as a loss.
Okay.
And then Wisconsin at home. I think we beat Wisconsin. Iowa's still too much of a question mark. All right. So what is that? We beat Iowa. All right. So I think I predicted too many wins there. What do I got to say? Like 9-3?
I don't know.
I had losses to Ohio State.
You had 4-2 to start.
4-2 to start. Okay. So yeah, that was 8 wins. Cool. So I lost to Ohio State. I lost 8-4. So I think that's fair. Yeah.
I tend to group these games together like this. Yeah, this entire first block is just time to get off to a fast start, get healthy, boost up the record. This better get done. I think that they should be, with Illinois and Rutgers at home and Ross-Ade not the most intimidating place to play, Colorado at home, I'm going to go 5-1 to start. And then I'm going to say out of those 3 there, man, if they can go 2-1 against Indiana, Ohio State, UCLA, then they're off and running. They're 7-2 at that point.
Yep. And then the momentum going into that last stretch.
I think they're going to lose 2 out of the last 3.
Do you know? Okay. So I would, by history, Wisconsin has had our number. I think, what is it? Like, we've beaten them one time since we've been Big Ten, but they've all been close. But which 2 would you say? USC and Wisconsin?
No, I think they lose at Iowa.
Man, how dare you?
They lose to USC and Iowa.
How could you do that? All right, all right.
2-1 would be a success. The final 3. 2-1 would be a success, but I think 1-2 is the most likely.
Okay, so losing to USC and Iowa and beating Wisconsin. All right, I'll accept that. So yours is a little bit different. So you're at 7 wins. If they go 2-1 against
is that what it is?
And if they go, you said if they go 2-1 at the Indiana, Ohio State, UCLA run there.
No, I've got them 8-4.
Oh, that's right. You did. Okay, so you did run with the 2-1. Was that your actual prediction there? Or
no, I said 5-1 to start.
Yep, and then
they lose to Ohio State. They're 7-2.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure if you had them 2-1 here because you were like, if they rattle off 2-1. So I wasn't sure if that was your official prediction.
Then
so
they go 1-2 at the end to go 8-4.
All right, so reasonable. We had the same ones, and Okay, cool. So I feel a lot better about that. I wasn't being too biased, and I picked against, I just a little bit hammered down on our rivals, but that's okay.
I'm always thinking content, so now I'm thinking I should go through all the schedules and make early predictions.
Let's do it. Everybody, people like to talk about that stuff, especially now the team's forming together and stuff like that, and all of the drama unfolding and kind of hopefully coming to a conclusion. We start to actually get into that stuff.
Yeah, but it's harder to make early predictions now.
It is
with the transfer portal.
Yeah,
we still have another round of that.
Yeah, we have a lot of them. Well, I say a lot. You look at the numbers of how many people are in the portal. I guess there's still a lot in there. It is a significant number, and it's as soon as you get a few people out of there, a few more go in. So,
all right, Justin, what are you up to this week?
So I'm going. I'm going to be just on my Big Ten channel. We're going to be posting stuff regarding the Michigan stuff going on right now. Any breaking news? The Washington coach. We're going to have a guy from Locked On Huskies. Tomorrow we're going to record a video to talk about the hire there, and just kind of bringing the news from all the Big Ten teams over at the Big Ten show. So a lot of fun over there, and then I should be joining John D'Adamo's The Ocho on, I believe he said the 25th, if I'm not mistaken, to go over. We might go over a little bit of a Nebraska records prediction and do a little bit of that more in depth. So.
There we go.
Oh.
All right, folks. Keep it locked in here. If you joined us late, all you need to do is watch the rest of the show as soon as it posts, which should be just about immediately. And we will continue to cover the Huskers here at the Voice of College Football. So keep it locked in here. And we will see you next. Let's see. We've got a 8:00 West Virginia show on the West Virginia channel. I will not be participating there. The next time you will see me, it's most likely, going to be Wednesday at 6 Eastern over on the Florida State channel. So we will see you then for FSU Seminoles Live. Appreciate everyone. Please hit the like button on the way out, and we will see you next Tuesday